And joining us now, Erroll Barnett from Washington, D.C. Erroll, this has been an eventful 24 hours for the president, partially by his own design. Can you talk us through the timing of the decision to pardon Joe Arpaio?
Well, Rena, we knew that President Trump would issue this pardon, as he hinted when he was in Phoenix on Tuesday. But the fact that the president waited the entire week, essentially, until the nation's attention was focused on Hurricane Harvey and until it was late into the evening has certainly given the impression that President Trump and the administration wanted to minimize attention on this decision. In fact, our Major Garrett reported late last night that the president made the decision to pardon former Sheriff Joe Arpaio before he declared Texas a disaster emergency area, which had been requested by the governors of Texas and Louisiana hours earlier in the day as this hurricane was approaching. So it appeared that before the president went off to Camp David, he did confirm this decision in a tweet. He did so before getting all of his ducks in a row with the hurricane, and we're seeing the after effects of now. So certainly the impression here in Washington, Rena, that the president wanted to minimize attention on what has been a controversial decision.
And Errol, what's been the reaction in Washington to all of this?
Well, Democrats, as you might expect, are incensed. But what's noteworthy is that the two Republican senators who represent Arizona, that's Senator John McCain and Jeff Flake, have both publicly disagreed with President Trump's decision. Now, we should note these are two men who have recently crossed paths with the president and feel confident to do that. But Jeff Flake, for example, well, you're seeing John McCain's tweet there. He also issued a statement essentially saying that this undermines President Trump's claim that he respects the rule of law. Jeff Flake also sent a tweet suggesting that the judicial process should take its course. And what that tells us is that while President Trump may be doing this as a way to rally his base and throw red meat at those who support his hardline stance on immigration, it continues to be something that alienates the president from those within his own party who he will need support from in order to get legislation like tax reform through in the next few months. So we could see more of the after effects of this in the weeks ahead.
And Errol, another big mid-storm announcement that Sebastian Gorka is out at the White House. Why did that happen?
It's unclear why that happened, Rena. All the White House would say to us is that he no longer works here and that he did not resign. Sebastian Gorka's official role was deputy assistant to the president. He his placement was within the national security apparatus, but even people within the White House weren't exactly clear on what his role was. All they knew is that he would appear on television regularly and be a fierce defender of President Trump, and that is something that the president appreciated. He was part of the ideological Bannon wing of the White House, you could say, before the chief strategist was let go last week. He is has a far-right ideology and is a hardliner when it comes to things like immigration and terrorism, and this is likely part of new Chief of Staff General John Kelly's shakeup of the White House to have a more consistent line of information coming to the president.
And Errol, the president also made it official that his ban on transgender troops in the military, his initial tweet on the subject took the military by surprise. But do we have a sense what this means for those already serving in the military?
That is the big question. And we don't know because the administration dodges answering how this memo that President Trump issued, and now the Pentagon has a number of months. The deadline is March of next year, or March of 2018, to figure out how to implement this return to banning of transgender troops in the military. But now we believe that President Trump is giving his Defense Secretary, Jim Mattis, authority to decide how and when to implement this. Mattis himself has said he's actually open to allowing some transgender troops to continue serving in the military. He says there are a whole host of complicated, sensitive and private issues that all of this involves that he will take into consideration. But the recent estimates are that there are only about roughly 4,000 transgender troops currently serving or as part of the reserves, and that's out of 1.3 million active troops in the military. So it's an effort by President Trump to deliver on something that he said he would do via tweet weeks ago, and it will take some months before we see how this materializes.
All right, Erroll Barnett coming to us from the White House. Thank you, Erroll.